Hey, beautiful human. Welcome to episode 13 of From Chaos to Cozy, where we're on an amazing journey gaining clarity around our chaos and how to see our cozy more clearly. In the last episode, we looked at an amazing tool provided by an amazing soul, Byron Katie, that she calls the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. It's a transformative tool that can aid us in overcoming some of our tendencies to be focused on others' actions and words, and it brings us some great freedom. So be sure to check that out if that sounds like something you'd be interested in. It's all free. And in this episode, I'm going to introduce an energetic process that I call the HEDGE, and even talk about a world hedge that can aid us in feeling peace while releasing energy that can build to the point that makes our heart ache. Now, this world can seem like a giant amusement park full of fear rides. Everywhere we look, there can be an opportunity to choose fear, and there are many individuals who are choosing fear around us that can encourage us to also stand in line to join those fear rides as well. On a personal level, we can create a hedge of peace and love that's like going to a little Zen garden in the middle of that giant amusement park full of fear rides, where the screaming from others and opportunities for us to fear are reduced or possibly even muted. We can enjoy a nice ice cream cone while we sit there and contemplate all of those shadow things. We can create an energetic hedge for ourselves and for others, even for the entire world. We'll take each one of these one by one, but first, let's talk about what this hedge is in a little more detail. What is a hedge? Everything is made of energy. Our bodies, animals, elements, the air, the entire physical universe. And at the core of everything, if you would magnify it deeply enough, I know that you'll find the same particle, an energetic particle made of unconditional love. It's the essence of the mother and father of all things, our creator. And depending on what level the particle vibrates at, that's what determines what it presents itself as in the physical realm. Physical energy, mental energy, emotional energy, energy of intention, spiritual energy, really all of it, they are all the same energy, just experienced and observed in different ways. Mental energy is witnessed through our human mind, our stories, that we put around things. Physical energy is experienced through our brain and our five senses. Emotional energy is experienced through our heart and our soul. And it's probably the one that stands out to us the most as humans because emotion can be so intense. And a hedge is an energetic pocket or bubble of unconditional love that creates a peaceful place for reflection, for shadow work, a recovery, the processing of things and flowing through emotion. It brings a quietness and stillness to our lives by allowing an opportunity for the lower vibrational people, situations, and things in our lives to convert to higher vibrational energy in order to remain in this bubble of higher vibrational unconditional love with us. If they choose not to evolve or raise to a higher vibration, then individuals and situations in our lives might be distanced from our lives and also possibly removed out of our lives temporarily or even permanently. And that's depending on the desire and purpose of our higher self. We gain new knowledge within the hedge because we step out of fear and we can think more clearly, feel more clearly, focus more clearly, hear more clearly, decide more clearly, act more clearly. Obviously, you can see how it makes things more clear. And living in a hedge our entire lives seems like it could be a possible option, but I feel like we tried that before and it wasn't as exciting as experiencing the lower vibrational events. After all, it's why we come here, to experience the contrast between what we are and what we are not. Higher vibrational versus lower vibrational. And we don't realize what high vibration is till we experience something different than what we are to see ourselves more clearly. So the hedge can act as a nice timeout from time to time when we need a break from the chaos of the world. And for individuals with amplified empathic abilities, there's also a sort of empathic bubble that is different from a hedge, which I do have a short video on in my Take 10 with Zen playlist, and I'll post a link in the description box of this video if you want to check it out. And in the next episode of this podcast, From Chaos to Cozy, I plan on going deeper into this energy because it's definitely part of my adventure in this lifetime. So more to come on that, but let's get back to the hedge. As with most things, we can start with experimenting creating a hedge for ourselves individually. Before we create a hedge for ourselves, I recommend taking time to check in with our higher self to see if we're ready to step away and go inward and upward to connect with spirit. Sometimes we're urged to persevere through a situation a bit longer because there's a little more to experience and learn. But when you get the green light from your higher self, then you can get quiet. You can take some deep breaths. Come to a place of calm and close your eyes. Imagine a bright spark forming in your chest, and then it grows larger and larger, expanding to where it encompasses your entire body. And then you can let it expand outwardly, and as it does, you will see it eventually reach the lower vibrational things in your life. And it's been my experience that pushing something away seems to agitate the thing and make it double down on staying lower vibrational. But when we grant it a choice, convert to higher vibration, or you're not able to stay in this high vibrational pocket of energy. And that's exactly what happens. It either chooses to convert to light, or it chooses to step outside the hedge. We don't approach it aggressively. We approach the lower vibrational, darker things with unconditional love, unafraid, in the vibrational realm, not the physical realm. And I'll usually use something from the outside world as symbols of the hedge process that I'm conducting. I'll take some sort of like necklace or a mandala beads and use that to represent the hedge itself, starting off with it smaller, like, kind of doubled up, folded in half in a way. And then I'll take a stone or a crystal to represent myself and also choose a darker stone or object that represents the shadow or the chaotic entity in my life. I activate the hedge and then physically move the dark object from inside the hedge to outside the hedge. And depending on the situation, I'll wait a little bit of time and see what the energy does in my life. And when I'm ready to expand silence and peace, then I'll unfold the necklace or the mandala beads to make it even larger, making the hedge, a larger circle. And with my crystal right there in the middle of the hedge, giving me the most space in between it, the crystal with the stone, and the hedge walls. And I'll introduce a candle at times to shed more light on the shadow things, things that I want to transform or learn about. I, want to make the most of the connection that forms with spirit during this time, because when we're not in fear, we have a great opportunity to see the games that are being played, the struggles that are experienced in the human world because of false beliefs, we have about our worth, etc. So in the stillness, we can make great progress on our evolutionary path towards enlightenment. We can become more familiar with the cozy without being so distracted by the chaos. And those events, people, and things of the outside world, those are only props. They're characters we're interacting with for the sake of each other's desired path. But they are important to our journey, so we eventually do want to return to the experiences of interacting with them all. I normally try to keep a hedge to around 2 weeks-ish at the most, though I do follow Spirit's guidance on making it shorter sometimes or longer sometimes, depending on what's happening in my life. And when I'm ready to return to the play going on stage, I emerge slowly back, like, how when someone has been deep sea diving below the ocean, they have sort of these decompression chambers where they slowly move back into the pressure of the air above the water so they don't hurt themselves. So I'll begin shrinking the hedge, having the mandala beads, whatever, that represented the hedge walls. And during that time, you may start to kind of hear the voices of people getting a bit louder again. But the difference is we are different. So we can approach situations differently and from different perspectives. And if we want to, when we feel comfortable, we can extend our energetic ability to activate hedges for others who ask us to do that for them. But there are a few things to be aware of. The first time I became aware of this hedge energy was actually in my third relationship. We'd been dating for a couple of months, and they were aware of my interactions with Spirit, with energy work and card readings and the such. And their ex happened to live in the same apartment complex as they did, and they were constantly interacting with them in ways that was becoming very frustrating for them. They literally asked me if there was something I could do to make them stay away from them. It was like, do something. And it was an interesting question because with my first ex, I was new to all the energy stuff then. And when they slashed my tires because I wouldn't get back together with them, I was a little angry and I was ready to send a whammy of energy toward them. But as I was building up this energy, this anger energy to send, my spirit guides tapped me on the shoulder to show me that if I sent this big ball of revenge energy toward them, that it would miss them, gain energy around the planet, building up and come back and whop me upside the back of my head. So I immediately shut that energy down and learned some great lessons with that, right? I realized that I don't want to send energy to hurt anyone, and I can't, like curses or whatever, because our own choices are what rule our life, not others' choices for us. So we can't do that. Curses and the such only work on us when we believe that they do and we're aware of them and we empower them. That's a subject for another episode someday, but it was important to know at least that much for this hedge energy process. Because when this third relationship person asked me that question, I stepped back and I asked Spirit, what can I do with this situation? And it immediately came to me to ask if they felt they had learned what they needed to learn from this person, from their ex. And they answered that they sincerely felt that they had, but now they were just not leaving them alone and were purposely trying to irritate them. And when it comes to our human side, I'm not 100% sure our human can know when we are done or not. I feel like our human might jump the gun and say, yes, I've learned everything. Now get rid of that thing that is teaching me things the hard way. Thus, I was nudged to connect to their higher self and ask their opinion and permission on whether it was time for this classroom to be over for them. And I received an affirmative from their higher self saying yes. And I feel that this experience that was going on was intended to teach me this exact energetic process. So I thank you, X number 3, for being the guinea pig for this experiment. Thanks for going through it for my sake. So I was guided by Spirit that what I would do is create a ball of unconditional love energy around them, and that if their ex chose not to convert to the higher vibrational energy, that they would be pushed out of their life. Or a way out of their life anyway. And I felt it was important for them, their ex, to have the opportunity to transform from darkness to brighter light. And so they agreed, and I put my hand out and closed my eyes, seeing in my mind's eye that bright light starting in their chest and moving out to encompass their entire apartment. And they felt warmth and they got goosebumps. They felt this energy, right? And I looked at them and we pretty much said, all right, well, let's see what happens, because this was the first time. So a couple of days later, they called me to tell me that their ex had received new military orders. They, of course, were in the military. And that they were being moved to Alaska. What? I know. It was crazy. But Spirit told me that this wasn't far enough yet, that they would actually be moved farther away. And so the person, they didn't care, because they were glad they were being moved at least out of state. That's, they're not going to be living in the same apartment complex or out of state. Alaska is far enough away. They were fine with that. They were a little skeptical that that they're going to get revised orders, because usually in the military, it's not very, very common that orders, once they come down, that they're changed that quickly again, right? That's the way it is. But a few more days later, they called me back and they were like, okay, orders did come in and they did indeed change. And now they were being moved to Germany over in Europe instead. And it blew my mind. But it opened up my understanding of how all this energy works with this sort of hedge. And over the years, since then, I began using it for friends and, so we can start with ourselves and then move to others, and usually our friends and people we know. And then you can even move on to strangers, of course. But over the years, I began using it mainly on friends who were having tough times in their life, always asking permission of their higher selves to give them a break, to have some peace and quiet, to reflect. And, I haven't ever been told no yet. And I feel the reason for that is usually it's just for a short period of time, for a couple of weeks. It's not like I'm asking for a lifelong reprieve from the tough times, right? And that's why we come here, right, to this giant amusement park full of fear rides, to ride the rides, not just to walk around trying to avoid everything. And I learned to warn individuals before enacting a hedge, because it does send people and situations out of people's lives if they don't convert to higher vibration. I had a friend who had a lower vibrational person call them up, cuss them out, hang up on them, and then block them. Another person was having trouble with their boss at work, and the boss was terminated a few days after I started the hedge. Often, people will stop responding to text and messages that we've left, or friends stop reaching out for the time of the hedge. I do hear very often when I create hedges for others that their lives become eerily quiet, and many people do take steps away from them. Many return back when the hedge lifts, but it does truly create space for inner reflection. And I do offer hedges as part of my services. I do have a link in the description box of the video below if you want to check it out. They're normally $50 for like a 2-week process where I communicate via email every few days, providing tools and guidance throughout the process. And for the rest of the month of May, I'm going to do a special offer, and I'm going to lower them to 50% off, so it's easier if anyone wants to be able to experience the hedge. So if you're interested, just check it out below. There's a link, and you can look at that. So it'll be $25 for the 2-week process. Also, in one of my Take 10 with Zen episodes, I briefly do talk about a different type of energy process where our heart is aching because we feel helpless to assist someone else that's going through a tough time, and we don't feel there's anything that we can do in the physical world to help them. I'll have that video linked in the description box of this video down below, and I also am going to expand on that in the next episode of this podcast, because I feel like it's important for us to understand all these different types of possibilities of energy. Might even trigger some ways of you looking at energy and creating your own fun process. Okay, so we've chatted about creating a hedge for ourselves and creating a hedge for another individual. But can we create a hedge for the entire planet? Ooh, let's dig into that. When we look at what is happening in the world, which of course is much easier in this day and age with television, cable, internet, and all that, we can find out something that's happened on the other side of the planet within minutes after it's happened. Previous times, it could take months or years before finding something out, and sometimes may not even have found about it at all. So we can be experiencing stress or anxiety about what we witness, and we can have a great deal of fear about what is happening in the world. And there is a difference between what we perceive as our world and the world. Our world is that which directly impacts our lives, like the people we interact with face to face or, directly, our jobs, our finances, our environment, even government officials who make decisions that impact us. The world is the rest of all those things that we are not directly in contact with, yet everything that happens on the planet does impact us eventually. We're all of the same energy collective of the earth, and like a bunch of people on a boat, if it's sinking on one end, it will eventually impact us as we all sink below the surface. So war and devastations of mass kinds can eventually influence our own little world. We can expand a hedge to the world. However, our intention isn't about control and changing things. It's about expanding love energy and allowing the lower vibrational energy to transform to higher, or it begins to be pushed off the earth. When a lower vibrational energy chooses not to convert to light, it becomes even lower, meaning it becomes more and more uncomfortable. Not out of punishment, but because at our core, we are all higher vibrational beings, so lower vibrational energy already feels uncomfortable. And like attracts like, thus, if it gets darker and darker, it becomes unbearable at some point. And that ignites a strong desire to convert to higher vibrational energy or to leave the plane of existence as a human, an animal, or whatever the lower vibrational energy is existing within. So what about free will and power of choice if this involves people or a person that may be doing things that are impacting our lives in a lower vibrational way, like maybe a national leader or government officials, people making decisions, or bosses, or whatever it may be, right? Well, we can start by always asking permission of our higher selves of the entire Earth collective, the Creator and Mother Earth. And because these individuals are able to impact our lives, we can focus on raising the vibration around someone to bring out truth, clarity, guidance, and even giving them signs around them. And maybe with a chance that surrounding someone or a situation with unconditional love, that it may spark the unconditional love within them. And we change from the inside out, so trying to force someone to change from the outside in isn't productive or effective. Any change that may appear to have happened from forced change isn't true change. It won't last long, and more likely will cause rebellion against whoever's trying to change them, where they may even go further in the opposite direction than they were even before. Ultimately, of course, whatever happens in the outside world can only impact me if I let it. Every moment is a choice I make about the story, my emotion, the spiritual and manifesting energy, and my physical actions. And as I mentioned in the earlier HEDGE information, this isn't about fear, it's always about love, unconditional love. In the next episode, I'm going to talk a little more about how we can use energy for our and the collective's higher experience, and some other types of energy processes that we can use as tools to bring the Earth a little further away from chaos and a little closer to cozy. So until next time, remember, every second of every moment of our lives, that we are eternally and unconditionally loved by the Mother and the Father of all things, our Creator. And of course, I love you too. So hang in there, take care of you. We'll see you soon.